Today I'm here to talk to you about increasing student engagement and strategies to make that last and help improve educator implementation. So for today's objectives are to name and identify components of function-based support, troubleshoot and describe strategies to overcome common challenges, and apply coaching strategies and session content to the case studies. So we'll start by just a quick review of what is function, common errors and reinforcement, specifically looking at mismatch function, and then how do we teach this knowledge to others. So as a reminder, behavior can either function for the student to obtain or access something or avoid something. A student might engage in contextually inappropriate behavior to obtain attention, tangible, or sensory. Additionally, or alternatively, a student may engage in contextually inappropriate behavior to escape or avoid something, such as attention, demands, or sensory. So when we hear this statement, which we hear in school sometimes, what is your first thought when a teacher says, I'm doing reinforcement, but it isn't working? A lot of times this is because the reinforcement that they're providing isn't matching the function of a student's challenging behavior. So they're reinforcing this new replacement behavior. They're teaching the student a way to request something appropriate or engage in alternative behavior, but they're not reinforcing. But it's not reinforcing for the student because it doesn't match the function of that contextually inappropriate behavior. So when we look at this example, that was from my early time teaching. So when asked to complete a reading comprehension task, my student Aiden would repeatedly ask for his sister or pretend to call his dad on a calculator and tell him, I'm not doing my work. And this often resulted in him not completing his work. So I had some understanding of function. I had some training and understanding of function of behavior. So through that process, I determined that he was engaging in these behaviors of calling his sister or asking for his sister and calling his dad on the calculator to escape those task demands for that reading comprehension task. I did assess the reading comprehension task to make sure it was an appropriate level of something he could do, and it was. So I created an intervention, created this little token board where he could earn tokens for answering every comprehension question and get access to his handy dandy notebook and his green crayon. He was really into Blue's Clues. And I was like, great, he loves these things. But the intervention completely failed. He was still calling his sister, calling for a dad. It was not working because I didn't match that intervention to the function of his behavior. He wanted to escape the task. He didn't want access to his favorite tangibles, which were this notebook and green crayon. He didn't want to do the work. So I relooked at this intervention and turned around a little bit. So by understanding this escape, he's trying to escape the task. We came up with a plan that if he's completed half the assignment quietly, he didn't have to do the second half of that assignment. So when I saw him working quietly, I would go over and cross off questions on his worksheet so he didn't have to complete the rest of those comprehension questions. For every question he answered quietly and correctly. This was great success. He was working more systematically. We increased how much he was required to do over time. Sometimes I just added extra questions at the bottom that I knew that I could cross off, but I didn't actually want him to answer it. So it increased his work output over time but I was able to do this, and we had great success because I matched the function of the reinforcement to the function of his challenging behavior. So just take a moment to think about how you would support a teacher who's having a difficult time matching that reinforcer to the function of the contextually inappropriate behaviors. So one way we can do this is through coaching, and specific framework that I'm going to talk about today is behavioral skills training, or BST. So with BST, it includes 4 steps: instruction, modeling, rehearsal, and feedback, and can be done in as little as 10 to 20 minutes. We start with the instruction. We want to explain to the person we are coaching what is the strategy and why it's important. So for example, I might explain that The strategy is that we want to match the function of the challenging behavior to reinforcement, because we know reinforcement is more effective when it matches the function of the contextually inappropriate behavior. So I would give some examples. If a student is exhibiting contextually inappropriate behavior to obtain attention, we could respond with verbal praise or eye contact for that replacement behavior or the on-task behaviors. If they're engaging in that contextually inappropriate behavior to obtain tangibles, we can teach them replacement behavior to ask for any of these tangibles. And if they're engaging in contextually inappropriate behavior to obtain sensory input, we can give them an appropriate way to access that input. The key is they're still getting what they want, but we're now giving them what they want for the appropriate behavior instead of that contextually inappropriate behavior. Alternatively, students might engage in contextually inappropriate behavior to escape or avoid something such as attention. We could do this by, when a student asks appropriately, we could allow them to escape to a less crowded area of the room, maybe the back of the room where there's not as many people, and they could escape some of that attention. If they're engaging in contextually inappropriate behavior to avoid task demands, maybe we teach them to ask for a break so they can still get that break. Instead of needing to engage in that contextually inappropriate behavior, they can get a break or assistance with that difficult task when they ask appropriately. And if they're trying to escape that or avoid those sensory input, we can teach them a behavior that gets them that sensory input, and we reinforce that by allowing them to access or avoid, by allowing them to avoid that sensory input in a acceptable and appropriate, contextually appropriate way. We also, remember, as part of the instruction in VSD, we want to explain why this is important. So not only what are we doing, we're matching that reinforcement to the challenging behavior, the function of the challenging behavior. We also want to explain why we need to do that, because reinforcement is more effective when we match it to the function of the challenging or contextually inappropriate behaviors. Next, we'll model, give an example of how you would do it. So this could be based on, if you've done the function-based thinking guide with someone else in your building, you've worked through that before, you could use that as a model, obviously de-identified to protect that student's identity and privacy, but walk through that form, walk through those data and say, okay, here's the function we have, here's the plan we have in place. You can see that alignment. In this quick example, say Anne was frequently out of her seat during small group work. We use the function-based thinking process to identify a probable function as access to teacher attention. So to reinforce her for staying in her seat, teacher praise, she is still getting teacher attention, now for a contextually appropriate behavior. After, there's a chance. So we've done that instruction, modeling. Now there's a chance for rehearsal. This is for the teacher to try it out. So this could be done by, maybe the teacher's already worked through that function-based thinking, that first part of the process, and they're really struggling with that matching the function to the reinforcement. So we could work through that case with them in hopes that in the future cases, then they'd be able to do that independently. We might use case studies. We might role play. In my example here, I'll use a small case study. So in this example, we would first identify the function. So when it is loud in the cafeteria, Kelly leaves the cafeteria without asking. However, he stays when the cafeteria is quiet. So if you think about the function of this behavior, we can identify that function as escaping sensory stimulation or that noise. It's too loud, so Kelly leaves. However, it's not safe that Kelly just gets up and leaves. We need to figure out a better way for him to be able to avoid that sensory, to still match that function, right? Still avoid that sensory stimulation of that loud noise. But what would a potential reinforcer be for Kelly? So we could look at allowing him to leave when he asks, having him sit with a preferred peer at lunch, or earning a break for completing work without crying, right? This isn't a work completion issue, so that wouldn't be reinforcing. Have Kelly sit with a preferred peer at lunch. Well, doesn't sound like Kelly's trying to access peer attention, but with A, asking to leave the allowing him to leave the cafeteria when he asks, yes, this is safe. We know where Kelly is now. He's going to ask to leave, but also we're still matching that function though. He's allowed to leave. He's allowed to escape that noise, but by using a contextually appropriate behavior, our reinforcement can still align. what's really important with the BST practice is that after that role play or rehearsal opportunity, there's opportunity for feedback. So with our feedback, we want to be objective, encouraging, and start and end on a positive note. So even if the teacher maybe identified this in this scenario, the potential reinforcer incorrectly, maybe they said that Kelly should sit with a preferred peer at lunch. You can start positive saying, yes, Kelly might really enjoy that. However, that's not really matching the function of his behavior. That would be great if Kelly was trying to access peer attention. But based on our data, we see that Kelly is trying to escape that loud noise in the cafeteria. How might we, reinforce a more appropriate behavior, but still allow him to escape that loud noise, right? So we can kind of think through it together and still be really encouraging and thoughtful in our responses to those that we are providing this coaching to. So why should we use BST? Well, we know it's effective. We've seen it effective with general education teachers, special education teachers, paraprofessionals, pre-service teachers. It's effective. It's also time efficient. Yes, it still requires one-on-one coaching, but it can be done in as little as 10 minutes. And we've seen that across the board that people are able to do this within 10 minutes. It may take a few sessions, maybe 2, 3, 4 sessions, but those 10-minute chunks are a lot easier to fit in our days than an hour or 40-minute chunk. It's also effective with a wide range of people you might be supervising. So we've done with paraprofessionals, teachers, pre-service teachers, and we can use this. We specifically talked in the context of matching function of behavior to the replacement behavior, to the function behavior to the reinforcement, but really we can use it to teach a variety of skills to paraprofessionals and teachers and other school support staff. So I just want to challenge you to kind of think about how you could use this BST within your role and how this might be helpful in the future for you. So thank you so much for your time today. I'm happy to respond to emails and chat with you about this more if you'd like. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you.